Good afternoon, everybody. We're ready to start the afternoon workshop, and I want to begin by introducing Dr. George Griffin, who is the lead on the accreditation team, and preliminarily thank all of the members of his team for the work that they've done over the last 3 or 4 days. If you count the first night, it's maybe a half a day, I don't know. But it's been a pleasure to have you here, and we look forward to what you have to say. So if you could move to the podium and be ready to speak to us, I'd appreciate it. I would ask the board members to hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and then we can shoot them at Dr. Griffin at that point in time. You're on.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scott, members of the board, Dr. Graham, and to all of you in the audience. My name is George Griffin. I'm from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I'm the lead evaluator for the accreditation team of 16 persons that are here. And this afternoon, I want to take about 25 minutes of your time to share some preliminary findings from our review visit. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce our associate lead evaluator, and then I've asked our team members to just very briefly introduce themselves to you, tell you where they're from, so that everybody will know who's who a little bit. So first I'd like Dr. Dolores Calloway to introduce herself. She said not done. So what?
Good evening. Good afternoon. My name is Dolores Calloway, and I am from Martin County.
Martin County, okay.
My name is Corey Usselton. I'm from the Memphis, Tennessee area. I'm the principal of the Southern Central High School.
I'm Dr. Felicia Smith, and I'm from Fort Smith School District, Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Hello, I'm Lorna Kirkham. I'm coordinator of accountability at St. Augustine, Florida. I'm Diane Peterson. I'm a curriculum coordinator at Ankeny Community School District from Ankeny, Iowa.
I'm Martin Suplinski from Ocala, Marion County, and I'm a virtual teacher.
I'm Dr. James O'Hara. I'm one of those snowbirds that spend part of my time here in Venice and part of my time in New Jersey.
And I'm Charlotte Draper, retired assistant superintendent from just south of Birmingham, Alabama.
I'm Rebecca Blunt, retired assistant superintendent from Highlands County.
Good afternoon, I'm Patricia Hodge, and I'm the current superintendent of Florida A&M University Lab School.
I'm Nikki Jessen. I'm Director of Quality Education in the School District in Maysville.
I'm Ken Manuel, Advanced State Florida Social State Director, Jacksonville, Florida.
Madam Senator, retired from Orange County Public Schools.
David Franco, this must be the retired section. David Franco retired there from Detroit, Michigan, and not looking forward to going back. Denny Nath, retired educator from Mitchell, South Dakota.
Meet everybody? Great.
I guess they all did stay, because there's 16.
Thank you all, and I do want to speak about their role again in just a minute. But before I get started with the formal presentation, I want to recognize one of your staff members and deliver her a big thank you. Nobody knows how much work it takes to coordinate a team like us, to get us here, to deal with us, and I've been the recipient of 1,400 emails in the last 4 months, numerous phone calls, 24 hours a day, and it's been a total delight. But she has done an incredible job of pulling this together. I want to recognize Dr. Denise Carlin. Thank you, Dr. Carlin. And I know you had help. We just don't have time to go over all the names today. going to take you through some slides. The first several slides explain a little bit about accreditation, and I'll do my best to speak into the microphone and address the board. My natural tendency is to want to turn and yell at you guys, so forgive me for not looking at you. I think you can hear better when I'm using the mic. Accreditation today is an international symbol, and here's what it means. And when I say international, Advanced Ed accredits schools and school districts in over 70 countries throughout the world. All the Department of Defense schools, a lot of the American Indian, Native American reservation schools. It's been in existence for over 100 years as a organization. Many of you in the audience may have known Advanced Ed as SACS, S-A-C-S, or the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, which is a piece of Advanced Ed today. The symbol, the reason people seek accreditation, can be summed up in one word. It's a symbol that the district is committed to continuous improvement. And that's really the essence of what we're all about today, and that is the value in this entire process is the work done by the school district in its own self-assessment, its own self-analysis, and all the work the district put into its preparation for the review visit itself. And that's the true value in this. We recognize that we're only here for 3 days, and it would be presumptuous of us to say a lot on those 3 days, but the value is the district did its report, they did their homework, they identified their strengths and they identified their needs, and we use that as the basis for the review. We use a process today called balanced accreditation. We are going to talk a little bit about 3 different aspects of accreditation. One focuses on the impact of teaching and learning, what's going on in the classroom. The second one focuses on leadership capacity. How does leadership interact and work to make the school system better for the students? And then the third area is resource utilization, and that deals with, just as it says, how are resources used in the district? I'm getting to my help button here. Karen, can you advance that? Thank you. I always have, there's something about my skin or whatever that these little button things work for a while and they quit, and so I just ask for help. And Dr. Sparks was nice enough to say, just kind of look at me and I'll advance it for you. The external review team, you've just met them. They're all professionals. They've got incredible experience and backgrounds. I added up the years, over 500 years of professional experience in that group. That's a lot of experience. We'll leave it at that. Our job is to determine how you address the standards for accreditation. We have a responsibility to analyze your work and to evaluate it and then to deliver feedback to you. And we do it in 2 ways. One is this oral exit report, and the second is a written report. And we will send you a detailed written report in approximately 45 days. It'll contain a lot more information than I'm going to share today. Here's what we did while we were here. It's a pretty impressive number. We interviewed 503 different people. 168 administrators, you can see the numbers, 177 teachers, 127 students, 31 parents, community members. This is an unduplicated count. We also did 150 what we call formal classroom observations yesterday and today in 18 of your schools. And I'll talk a little bit more about those classroom observations in just a minute, but they entailed a minimum of 20 minutes or more in a class using an observation instrument that we refer to as the Elliott. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute. So that's just a lot of work done by this team. A few things I wanted to share with you that we just couldn't help but notice. You got lots of positives in this district, a lot of strengths. One thing that was apparent to us is that leadership, both in the central office and at the building level, for quite a while, obviously, to us, has helped develop a culture in this school district that encourages innovation, collaboration, professional growth, and most importantly is focused on students and student achievement. The teachers and the support staff, professionals and non-professional support staff have created classrooms that are clearly focused on helping students develop learning skills, thinking skills, and life skills. When we got back yesterday after a whole day, and we spent all day Tuesday in your schools, and the team got back last night, we started sharing and comparing notes and talking. And it was just an incredible amount of, oh, I saw this, I saw that, you wouldn't believe what they're doing here, this teacher was so good. And we know it's not just the schools that were visited yesterday, but we couldn't go to all of them. So, a compliment to the teachers in this system. And your classrooms were so well managed and inviting. Now, we know you got your rascals in schools too, because we're all educators. But I got to tell you, I heard everybody last night talking about how well-mannered the students were and how polite they were and how respectful they were, and all that is true. I didn't hear anybody come back, and say, whew, that school was rough. And I mean, I've worked at schools where I would say, that school was rough. The foundation for Lee County Public Schools here very graciously spent some time with us. They're a notable community partner here. They're valued, they're recognized for their support of education. A number of our team members said to me, we have foundations too where I live, but not to this extent. And it's not as positive, and it's not as energetic and passionate than the people we talked to and met. So we wanted just to point that out. The community partnership, and we know there are other partnerships as well, are very vital and important, and we notice them. And then lastly, I would say, and I've said this before, there was a genuine commitment here to continuous improvement. From the moment I got connected with Dr. Carlin and the staff here, all we ever heard was, we want to learn something from this review. We want to get better. We're looking forward to the feedback. We're doing our homework. We want to hear what you have to say. And that's been the attitude ever since we got connected, and that is commendable. It truly is. So I hope people will feel good about that. I told you I'd mention the Elliott, the Learning Environment Ratings. It's a 7-scale instrument, and the numbers are in front of you, and they're not going to mean much today. In the written report, this will all be described. I know people are starting to look at, what's the highest number, and what's the lowest number? What is that digital learning down there, 2.02? That doesn't look good. Well, first of all, the scale we use has a 1 to 4 scale, and the lowest rating means we didn't see it. We call it not observed. It doesn't mean it's not happening. And the highest rating means we're seeing it. It's evident, very evident. And it doesn't mean it happens all the time. It means during that 20, 25-minute observation, this is what we saw occurring. So I'm going to share with you what we saw the most of, and I'm going to share with you what we saw the least of. But don't sit there and say one is good and one is bad, because that's not the correct way to interpret these numbers. The correct way would be to interpret them as, oh, they saw more of this than they did of that. So here's, in plain English, off of our scale, just some items for discussion. Not today, but the bold print is only to set off so you can see where one sentence ends and the next one. The bold doesn't mean anything other than might be a little easier to read. And the whole instrument is aimed at students and student perspective. So we take the role of a student in the classroom when we're sitting in the room. We're not evaluating teachers. We're actually evaluating the environment for student learning. And what appeared the most was that students have equal access to everything that goes on in schools and classrooms. It's an equity statement. Do all students have an opportunity? The answer is, yeah, we saw a lot of that. Is the learning challenging but attainable? Yes. Do students get assistance from their teachers to understand the material being presented? Yes. Are the students actively engaged in the learning activities? Yes. Do the students respond to teacher feedback? In other words, if a teacher says something to them, do the teacher and student have an interaction until the student can start to learn something from that, rather than you're right and you're wrong? Are they respectful? Yes. And the one on digital tools and technology, our instrument asks Are students using technology for learning right then and there? Not are teachers using technology to teach? And not is the technology available in the classroom, but are the students actually using it while we're sitting there watching? And so that's the relatively lower observations than others. There would be less technology use than some of the other things we observe, but I wouldn't say it's either good or bad. That's not the point. In this case, the highest use of technology was to gather information. And I'm going to share with you the next slide, the lowest use of technology, and while we're on the subject, and it had to do with using technology for research, to create original works, and for those kind of activities that would require use of higher order thinking skills. So we actually look at not only are they using technology, but what are they using it for? And that's what the difference here. Now, these are the areas that came out relatively less observed on our scale. Differentiation of learning opportunities. You might say, okay, we'll keep working on differentiation. The use of higher order thinking skills. Are the students being asked to use their higher order thinking skills, and or are teachers using questioning? But again, none of these are deficiencies, they're just less observed. Because we know you're working on these as professional development strategies, as school improvement strategies. So it's not that this is coming out of nowhere to you. Are there alternative instructional opportunities for students in the classroom? It sort of fits maybe with differentiation. We notice sometimes there could be perhaps more connection of course content to real life experiences. Maybe the students could use a little more help in understanding how their work's being assessed and measured. That seemed to be a little less clear. Was there a lot of student collaboration and activities that were student-centered going on versus more teacher-led activities? And that's another area. So there's more in the Elliott for you, and it'll all be described in the written report. But we always find this information useful in terms of pointing you in a direction to get a conversation started. And so that's what it's about in the report. It doesn't actually affect your accreditation recommendation at all. It's just to affirm for us in a more objective fashion what we believe to be the case. Help me, Karen, please. Thank you. Okay, the Index of Educational Quality. This is a new measure that Advanced Ed has begun this year to provide feedback to school districts, and I'm going to go very quickly because this is very confusing to discuss in a big audience like this for the first time ever, but it will be in very great detail in the written report. But in a nutshell, let me try. You see that top scale up there? You've got a 263. I had to turn around. I can't even see the numbers over on the far screen. Sorry. What that top scale represents is this. We took all the standards and indicators that you rated yourself on, and we rated you on them. And we added them all up. And when you add them all up, the number comes out to 263. That's the total points earned in this observation for everything we looked at. And here's how it will be of use to you, two ways. One is in the future, when you do this again, you want that top number moving toward the green, to the right. You want to make some overall progress. Two, as Advanced Ed continues to use this instrument, you can take your school district and compare it to other school districts. You can say, let's look at all the Florida school systems that got accredited and see where we stand, just for our own information. And you could say, let's look at all school districts with 80,000 students. Let's look at all, you get my point. The more this is used by Advanced Ed, and this is the first year, the more it will become useful down the road as just a trend or comparison number for you. Now, the three subscales, the second one down there is teaching and learning. It's standards 3 and 5, and the student performance diagnostic combined. And people who did this report in the district, who did your self-analysis, you know what I'm talking about. And if you didn't do the report, you read our written report, it'll explain it in better detail. The second one, leadership capacity, deals with standards 1 and 2, and the stakeholder feedback surveys. And then the third standard is resource utilization. And it could just give you a quick snapshot, a visual of where did we perform in these various areas. And I'm going to let it go at that for today. We have required actions. I've got 5 of them. A required action is an activity that the Advanced Ed will follow up with you on to see how you're addressing it as a district after we leave. We also, in our written report, have left you a lot of opportunities for improvement or additional recommendations. But 5 today I wanted to share with you. This one is from Standard 2, which is governance and leadership. The board shall review, revise, and implement procedures to ensure that the board clearly supports systems' purpose and direction, has mechanisms for monitoring the conditions that support student learning, effective instruction, and assessment, emphasizes challenging learning experiences, provides direction for professional growth of all staff. And we are suggesting that procedures be developed to implement the policies that you have in place. If you want a shorthand version of what that says, it's develop procedures. And in the written report, we will highlight this in great detail as to why we said this, what the evidence is, and how we would suggest people might consider implementing it. Second required action is to develop board policies and procedures to evaluate its actions to ensure that the board acts in accordance with defined roles and responsibilities, include a formally adopted code of ethics, and describe a process of participation in a professional development program that addresses conflict resolution, decision-making, and supervision and evaluation. And the emphasis here is on procedures again. The policies are in place. And if I were going to edit this while I'm standing here, I would just say develop procedures to evaluate the board's actions. Required action 3, and it again relates to Standard 2, governance and leadership. Board shall develop and implement procedures to consistently protect, support, respect the autonomy of system and school leadership to accomplish goals for achievement and instruction and manage day-to-day operations of the system. The next required action is from Standard 4. And this deals with evaluating the effectiveness of the range of services you have right now that support the counseling, assessment, referral, educational, career planning needs of all students, and then select or design and implement programs to address these needs. The key focus here is to evaluate the effectiveness of existing programs. Evaluate is the key word. What's really making a difference? And then either continue the ones that are making a difference or perhaps select and or design newer ones to address these kind of needs for all your students. And we heard this over and over from people as a need. And then a required action related to Standard 5. Basically, this says develop a good, effective system for data analysis that will give a comprehensive picture of student learning, instruction, the effectiveness of your programs, and the conditions that supports learning, and then use that data to inform all future continuous improvement plans and activities. The buzzword that probably everybody in the room knows, phrase that I heard over and over, we heard over and over, is we're data rich and analysis poor. And that sums it up as to what we're suggesting here. None of this will come as a surprise to you in the system because you identified that as a need of your own, and all of these needs were. Now, let me stress again, our written report contains much more feedback than I'm highlighting today. There are lots of what we call opportunities for improvement. They're stated just like the required actions are. They have extensive narrative descriptions with them of evidence and recommendations for how to implement them. Then what you do with them as a district is entirely up to you. We leave it as our best effort to just provide some suggestions and recommendations to help you with your continuous improvement. And everything's offered in that spirit, including the required actions that are here today. And that report will be, like I said, available to you in about 45 days. Accreditation recommendation. We're at the point where really most people is like, just get to it, George. Are you recommending accreditation or not? That's really why I'm here. I don't know what you just said for the last 20 minutes, but it's our pleasure to recommend that the Lee County School District be accredited, and I think you should give yourself a round of applause. And I know some of you are jumping ahead, reading that little, what's that little what there at the bottom? Pending further review, okay? Let me explain that to you because it's a required slide of mine. We don't have, as the review team, the authority to actually award accreditation. The commission meets twice a year and formally awards accreditation. But our recommendation is strong. This is not the question, is not on the table, whether you really get accredited or not when they meet. But we have the external review right there in green. We've just completed that. And then the Advanced Ed office will review my report, and I say mine, it's the team's work. I pull it together, and it goes through multiple reviews for editing, accuracy, and consistency before it gets back to you. And then they will send you a copy of the report before the commission meets in June, so that you can have the report to begin to do with as you wish to move ahead. And then they meet twice a year, and they'll then formally send you a letter that says, congratulations, you've been accredited for 5 years, and that you will need to address the Advanced Ed required actions, and that'll be a 2-year process. And they will send a follow-up. Roughly at 18 months, you get a letter saying, hey, you had a visit a year and a half ago. Sometime in the next 6 months, please tell us how you address these actions. And that's the essence of it. And you'll report to them in that process. And assuming it's satisfactory, then that ends it until your next review visit, which is 5 years as part of accreditation process. So congratulations to you all on accreditation. Just a few final thoughts to reiterate our appreciation. I cannot tell you how much we appreciate your hospitality, your friendliness, taking care of us. People have come, you heard them introduce themselves. They're from all over the country. Standard procedure for Advanced Ed is that half of a review team is from out of state, half is from in-state, and the lead evaluator is always from out of state. They don't always go to South Dakota and Utah for people like they did here, but and I'm sure it had nothing to do with being in Southwest Florida in early March. Anyway, we've appreciated your hospitality. We really have. You guys have been great, and I say that throughout the system. Enjoyed getting to know the board. We enjoyed the initial meeting with the community on Sunday evening. The school people were great. Central office people have been wonderful. If I start naming groups, I'm going to offend somebody, and I don't mean to. You were wonderful, too, if I left you out. And with that, I am finished, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And I know that when the final document comes to us in a month or a month and a half, we'll be diving right into it to see what we can do to address some of the issues that you brought forward to us, because what we want to do is be the best we can be. And you can trust that that's going to happen. If there's any way at all we can pull it off. I'd like to ask if there are any questions from the board members. Mrs. Dozier.
Yes, I would like to ask, is it possible for us to have a copy of this PowerPoint?
Yes, Dr. Graham has a copy of the PowerPoint.
Very good.
It's already in the presentation folder.
Very good.
Other questions?
I just have a comment. When I had my interview, it was very interesting, and I wanted to thank Diane from Iowa, Vicki from Utah, and Jim from New Jersey for being so interested in what we're doing. And I do appreciate this snapshot of what went on the last 3 days. And I know that we have, as always, work to do, and we will be doing that. And I'm sure that when you come back for your review in 5 years, you'll see a lot of progress. And we thank you all.
Other questions, comments?
Just got one. I want to actually congratulate and say thank you for Dr. Carlin, all your hard work that you put into this, and thank you to the team that's come down here. I'd like to say we could all take credit for this, but it's our staff, it's the teachers, it's the students. This is on them. They've done an excellent job, and I continue to say it. We always have something to brag about, and it shows it right there. Thank you.
Dr. Graham, would you like to have anything to say at this point, or?
Hooray.
Hooray.
I would appreciate it if staff would stay after everyone else leaves so I can talk to you for a few minutes. But thank you, team. You've been delightful. We did come into this wanting your feedback, needing your feedback. As you all know, as a team, we are getting ready to embark on the next journey. Dr. Carlin can hardly wait to put a strategic plan together. And obviously, your recommendations and the opportunities for improvement that you share with us will be very helpful as we move forward with that process. So thank you for your work and for struggling to come from the north to be in South Florida for a few days. I asked when the team got here, I did ask if we got extra points for weather. So I was a desperate woman at the time, but I had no doubt this would be wonderful, and it is, and we are grateful for your work. And Dr. Carlin, obviously, we're grateful for your coordination, and I can only hear the delete buttons going because they're all going to get rid of. You weren't the only one that got 1,000 emails about accreditation, so we're grateful. So thank you, and board, thank you for your support.
I just want to echo what Ms. Fisher said in terms of the one-on-one interviews we had. I enjoyed very much spending time. I don't know why you only had 3 people and I had 4.
Taller.
Okay.
Or you.
But it was enjoyable, and it was fun to hear the questions, understand, I think, where they were coming from, and to when I gave an answer, to watch pens start writing things on paper. I knew when I was saying something that had value to what they were adding, as opposed to when I was just talking. So. And they were writing quite a bit, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate the time to be able to spend with the 4 of you who were there, local people as well. Highlands County is pretty close by. No further questions? Ms. Dozier.
Well, I too am going to thank the 3 that I had the pleasure of. George was in with me, and was 2 other ladies. Thank you both, from Marion County and from Arkansas. I appreciate the fact that y'all were with us, and some of my old friends from Saxe-Casey, when I've had the pleasure to serve, and I'm seeing you in the audience today. The one thing that really was not an aha, but a sigh of relief to me when I had all of you in my office was when you said, well, the one thing that we have recognized that you have definitely worked on, and that is your definition and your understanding throughout the group of your vision and your mission statement. So, and I do know that has been a collaborative effort across the district, from the students to the every aspect of the organization, and the fact that is clearly defined, and that is what drives the organization. That is what leads us in what we do. So thank you. And I know that all of you had to come from places all over the place. I appreciate the fact that you were willing to leave those snowy states and leave the areas in the north, and also come from different places in Florida to visit us. We always welcome you back, and we'd like for you to stay even longer and vacation a little while down here and spend some of your tax dollars down here, because that goes to education. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Griffin, for your work, and the team, and for everybody else that sat in the room today. I know all of you have been involved in this thing for a long time, and we appreciate the hard work that you've done on it. And congratulations. We saw the words that we wanted to see on that next to last slide. So if there are no further questions, we'll adjourn this meeting, and thank everybody for their participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff to stay.